If you have ever fought power punchers, you know how hard it is to balance the use of your footwork to outbox them without looking like you're running. After all, fighting power punchers creates a really odd dynamic. They force you to respect their power, while they tend to walk through your shots. This leaves most boxers with two options. Either they trade with the power puncher and try to push them back, which plays into their strengths, or try to box backwards and risk getting pushed into the ropes and losing control of the fight. The general advice of using your footwork to defeat power punchers is true, but how specifically use your footwork in order to defeat them rarely gets properly explained, and is not as simple as just keeping them at the end of your jab. And even if you manage to keep them at the end of your jab, no one ever talks about how to score your own points. There's a difference between being pushed back and looking like a victim and a tactical retreat where we are controlling the distance and luring the power puncher into our traps. Today, you will learn exactly how to achieve this control by using proactive footwork to outbox power punchers. This will help you not only to neutralize their offense, but also set up your own offense. And we will use Kelly's upset against Murtazaliev as the main example for this skill in action. So, what is proactive footwork, and how can this help us to defeat power punchers? To answer that, we have to start with a common mistake. Most boxers use their footwork passively. They stand in range and wait for the power puncher to make the first move. Then, they try to react. But this approach has it backwards. In this example from Inoue versus Fulton, you can see that letting your opponent go first and forcing yourself to react is a recipe for disaster. Because by definition, you are one step behind. And while you are too busy reacting to your opponent's first move, you will be late to see and react to the second and third move. On the other hand, proactive footwork allows you to position yourself one step ahead of your opponent, allowing you to see their punches better. This translates to better defense and more effective counters. When you watch highlights, you think those boxers are just reacting fast. But in reality, what makes these boxers react so well is that they are using proactive footwork to position themselves at a distance that makes it easier to react. Proactive footwork is what Kelly used throughout the fight to outmaneuver Murtazaliev. Proactive footwork, more than a technique, is a mindset, because how you use your footwork is more important than the technique of your footwork. Let's get started by changing how you think about your footwork. First, we will cover the main setup of what our footwork is meant to achieve in the first place. Then, we will cover how to use proactive footwork to neutralize the power puncher's offense. At the end, we will see how proactive footwork will help us to set up our offense to win rounds. The setup for proactive footwork is distance control, because you need to understand first where you want to go before you can use your footwork to get there. Your footwork's goal is to keep you outside of your opponent's punching range, while allowing you to cut the distance and land your own shots. Keeping yourself out of punching range means that you are too far to get hit, or getting too close to be hit effectively, like when we use smothers. By constantly keeping yourself outside of your opponent's punching range, you are effectively applying distance control. Using distance control neutralizes your opponent's offense, since they are constantly struggling to get in the right distance to punch, making it harder for them to sit and punch. Most boxers understand this in theory, but in practice, I see many boxers who allow the power puncher to sit and trade at their preferred punching range, and this makes them lose control of the fight. It is your responsibility to fight for control of the space between you and your opponent. You can always be in control. There is always something that you can do to get out of punching range and stop the action. Kelly was successful in this fight precisely because from the opening bell to the last round, he made sure to negate Murtazaliev's punching range. Kelly was constantly monitoring his distance to always be just one step away. And of course, Kelly will move away as soon as Murtazaliev tried to get close, restarting the cycle. Every time they exchanged, Kelly made sure to finish by going out of punching range. That is why we saw very few combinations from Murtazaliev. He could only throw one punch at a time since Kelly was never in one spot for too long. Kelly made sure to make him reach as he punched, allowing himself the space to move and escape. Now, as you know, moving away and around is not enough. There will be moments when you run out of space. That is where the smother becomes essential. It is not a coincidence that the best boxers use smothers. Using this tool correctly allows them to control the distance and stop the action when the exchange is not going their way. The smother allowed Kelly to avoid getting trapped. For example, he will use it to push Murtazaliev to the center of the ring. He would also use it to turn Murtazaliev, allowing him to put him into the ropes. The smother is also useful to stop the action before your opponent can throw a punch. And lastly, the smother even allowed Kelly to stop the action when he was hurt, allowing him to recover. The main point to understand is that in order to be an effective boxer, you must be able to use distance control and stay outside of your opponent's punching range by any means necessary. But distance control is just a setup. The next step is to add proactive movement into your stance. But before we get there, if you feel like you're putting a lot of hours in the gym, but you're not progressing the way that you wanted, a personalized breakdown can show you exactly why. I can analyze your rounds the same way I am analyzing this fight, and I can give you feedback on what you need to do in order to get back to improving again. Click on the link in the description to get started. Now, back to the video. After we understand distance management, the next step is to add momentum to our stance. Think of your stance as a car. A car is only ready to move when the engine is running. From the outside, it looks about the same, but from the inside, we know that a car is only primed to move when the engine is running. Well, your stance works the same way. Your stance is most ready to work when it's already in motion. This is what the Soviet style is known for. They stay on their toes to keep their hips in motion, allowing them to pick up speed and move smoothly. On the other hand, having your body static, even in a technically solid stance, will make it harder to accelerate and move. This is just physics. It is just the way our body works. Staying in motion allows you to accelerate quicker and with less effort, since you are already moving. Now, this internal motion in your stance does not have to be standing on one spot and bouncing. Another way to achieve this is by doing small, constant steps. Kelly used these steps throughout his fight, allowing him not only to stay outside of punching range, but also to react since his feet were already moving. Even as he was getting hit or trapped, Kelly's willingness to keep moving allowed him to get away from dangerous situations. As you can see, since Kelly is moving, Murtazaliev cannot sit on his punches. So even if they are landing, they are never as hard as they can be. Staying in motion not only helps Kelly to keep Murtazaliev at bay, but also makes it easier to change directions and make better use of the ring as he moves. Remember, this motion is what makes boxers look like they have quick reflexes. When you are at the right distance and moving, seeing and reacting to punches becomes much easier. This is why it is not a coincidence that as soon as Kelly stopped moving and controlling the distance, he was surprised by a shot that put him down. More importantly, going back to his control of the distance and proactive movement is what allowed him to avoid Murtazaliev while he was hurt. All this movement is great to neutralize our opponent's offense, but it's not enough to win a fight if we cannot land our own shots. So let's look at how we can use our proactive footwork to land our own shots. As you may know, landing shots is the hardest part of boxing against a power puncher. They tend to punch with you, and this can make every exchange dangerous. But it is precisely their aggressiveness that becomes our advantage once we understand how to use our distance and footwork. Since our opponent is trying so hard to cut the distance to punch, their movement forward actually makes the openings we need to start landing our shots. The first way is to punch as they step in. Since they are covering the distance for us, luring them in works as long as you stand outside of punching range. It works well because our opponent is covering part of the distance for us, effectively walking into our shot. Also, by catching your opponent as they step in, we catch them off balance, allowing us more time to move and reset. An important thing about how Kelly manages to use this skill is that he punches while circling. This way, even if he misses, he will not be standing in front of his opponent to get hit. And because he is already in motion, even if he gets countered, he will not get hit with a second shot. The second way to score is by hitting right after they punch. These are some of the best shots you can land on power punchers, since almost every power puncher is vulnerable after punching. When boxers overreach, they tend to lose their balance. This creates a window to counter right after they punch. This is the setup Kelly used to score his knockdown. It's important to note Kelly's stance, which allows him to change directions and land his shots in both of these scenarios. Just moving away and sacrificing your stance will make your punches delayed, and your opportunities to counter will be few and far in between. Making sure that your base is always loaded as you move is a crucial step to taking as many openings as possible and outscoring your opponent. There you have it, a practical framework where you can use your proactive footwork to outscore power punchers. Beating power punchers has a lot in common with defeating pressure fighters. If you want to learn how to handle the pressure, you can click on this video, where I explain how El Rayo Valenzuela was able to defeat Pitbull Cruz. And if you found value in this video, please share it with someone who may need it. By sharing and subscribing, you support the channel, allowing me to bring more videos like this to you. Thanks for watching.